The movie begins with 8 candidates preparing for the final hiring exam for a high-paying corporate job. Some give themselves pep talks, while others fix their appearance before entering the exam hall. The room is dimly lit, with desks evenly spaced and cameras monitoring their every move. Once seated, a guard with a gun enters, making everyone uneasy. He is followed by a man who doesn't introduce himself, but calls himself the Invigilator. The Invigilator apologizes for the hardships they endured to reach this point, explaining that they have already passed earlier stages and are now the finalists. He tells them that if they pass this last test, they will secure their dream jobs. He explains the rules of the exam. No federal laws apply in the room, only the rules of the exam. They cannot talk to the Invigilator or the guard, ruin their paper, or leave the room for any reason, or they will be disqualified. The test is 80 minutes long, and they have only one question to answer. After asking if anyone has questions and hearing none, the Invigilator starts the timer, wishes them luck, and leaves the room. When the candidates turn their papers over, they see that they are completely blank, which leaves them confused. Tension builds, and eventually, candidate number 2 starts writing why she thinks she deserves the job. The camera zooms in on her paper, and the guard is instructed to remove her from the room for ruining her paper. She begs for another chance, but the guard shuts the doors behind her. Later, number 5 notices the rule says they cannot talk to the Invigilator or guard, which means they can talk to each other. He shares this with the group, making them realize they might need to work together to figure out the question before they can answer it. Despite their discussions, no one has any clear ideas. Candidate number 1 stays silent the whole time. Another man tries to introduce himself, but number 5 suggests they use nicknames instead of real names. He starts naming them based on appearance. Candidate 1 is called deaf because he hasn't spoken. The others are named brown, black, and white based on race, and blonde, brunette, and dark based on hair color. White suggests they get up from their seats, pointing out there's no rule against it. White stands up to test the rules, and everyone is relieved when the guard doesn't react, meaning they're free to move around. Dark suggests the question might be written in invisible ink or a watermark, so the group agrees to test the idea. Brunette uses the room's lights to check the paper, but nothing shows up. She insists everyone try their own paper, thinking the question might only be on one of them. Everyone does, except Deaf, who stays silently seated. White also checks his paper under the light, but they get no results. Black suggests the writing might only be visible under UV or X-ray light. The group begins searching for a switchboard to activate other types of light, but when they don't find one, they decide to look for a light source themselves. Deaf remains in his seat, clearly nervous. Blonde spots strips of emergency lights in the room, but since there are no switches, the group realizes they'll need to break the other bulbs to trigger an emergency light. Brown argues against taking such a risk, but after a vote, the group decides to go ahead with the plan. They smash the light bulbs, and the room glows blue under the emergency black light. The group quickly checks their papers again, except for Deaf, who stays put. Once again, they're disappointed when no question appears. Brunette suggests removing the first layer of the emergency lights to see if it triggers UV rays. Using her heels, they break the strips and reveal another type of light, but it still doesn't work. With only 60 minutes left, White grows frustrated and pushes the group to think of alternatives. White realizes they can use number 2's paper since she's already disqualified. The group gathers around her desk and tries tracing the paper with a pencil, but no question appears. White tears the paper into pieces to experiment further, even peeing on one piece to see if liquid activates it. This also fails. Black and White argue heatedly about their next steps, but stop when Deaf starts crying. He sobs quietly in his seat as the others look on, amused. Deaf begins mumbling in French, saying the paper reflects their image. The others dismiss his ramblings and continue brainstorming. Suddenly, Brown speaks up and shares his theory. He believes they aren't in an exam, but part of some kind of betting show. Brown suggests the board members placed bets on who would break under pressure, claiming their presence there is purely for entertainment. Brunette dismisses this, saying the board members likely have better things to do, but Brown counters that their extreme wealth means they live for thrills. The group starts sharing their theories. Some think the Invigilator is behind it, while others suspect the CEO. Tension rises, and they begin insulting each other. Dark confidently states no one is watching because the CEO is known to run the company himself with full authority. Her knowledge about the company surprises Brown, who asks how she knows so much. Dark reveals she already works for the company in HR, but has never met the CEO. She had applied for a higher position and ended up in the exam. White shares that he was headhunted for the role, while the rest admit they applied for it. However, none of them know what the company actually does because they were told not to ask questions. Dark explains they're applying for a position at Birog, a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical company. She says Birog was the first to find a cure for a pandemic that affected young people years ago, and now their annual turnover is $20 billion, all thanks to their CEO. Suddenly, Black suggests the company may have developed a cure for a new deadly virus killing millions. This grabs Brunette's interest, and she asks Dark for more details. White becomes suspicious and accuses Brunette of being infected by the virus. Brunette denies it, brushing off his suspicion, and changes the subject by taking a lighter from the guard's pocket without speaking to him. She looks at the fire alarm, and the group decides to use the lighter to trigger the sprinklers, thinking the water might reveal writing on the paper. Brunette stands on a chair to reach the alarm but can't reach it, so White gives her a rolled-up piece of paper to extend her reach. She lights it, triggering the alarm, and water begins to pour. However, the papers remain blank. Suddenly, the guard approaches them. Brunette unfolds her paper, revealing it's hers. White had secretly switched papers to eliminate her. The guard drags Brunette out as she angrily calls White a bastard. Afterward, Black furiously threatens to punch White's lights out, which accidentally triggers the room's lights to turn off. Realizing the lights are voice-activated, the group agrees to be careful with their words. Def starts crying again, adding to the tension. White sits in front of Def and bullies him into tearing up his own paper and eating it. The guard steps in and escorts Def out of the room. Now, only 5 candidates remain. Black insults White for being so cruel, but White brushes it off, saying they should thank him for reducing the competition. He also claims he knows the question but refuses to share it. Angry, Black punches him, knocking him out with a single hit. The group ties White to a chair and gags him with a tie. After some time, White regains consciousness. Dark removes the gag, and White says he needs his medication, revealing that he's infected with the virus and must take medicine every hour to survive. Black searches his pockets but doesn't find any pills, making the group think White is lying to be freed. However, White insists one of them stole the pill and promises to reveal the question if they return it. White soon collapses and begins trembling. While some think he's faking, Black says he's having a seizure because of the virus. The group searches desperately for the pill but can't find it. With only 15 minutes left on the timer, they begin checking each other. Dark accuses Brown of taking it and is proven right when she finds the pill stuck to a piece of gum under his desk. She tries to feed it to White, but Brown quickly throws it into a vent. As the others work to retrieve the pill, a panicked Dark pleads with the Invigilator to save White. But since speaking to the Invigilator is against the rules, she is disqualified and escorted out. After Dark leaves, Blonde uses a bobby pin to retrieve the pill and saves White's life. She also unties him. Once White recovers, the group demands he reveal the answer he promised. White explains that the answer isn't a question on the paper, it's the candidates themselves. He believes there is no real answer, and that the last person remaining in the room will be the answer. The group starts to believe him, but before they can act, White runs to grab the gun from the guard. Black blocks him, and manages to take the gun instead. Black points the gun at White, who confidently says he won't shoot. At the same time, White attacks Black and wrestles the gun away. However, when White tries to use the weapon, he realizes it's locked by fingerprint recognition. Thinking quickly, White forces the guard to unlock the gun and points it at the others, threatening them to leave the room on their own. Brown, scared of being shot, walks out deliberately. A frightened Blonde slowly walks out but yells, "Lights out!" just before stepping out completely. The room goes dark, and White starts shooting randomly. When the lights come back on, Black is lying on the floor with a bullet wound in his chest. White looks around and sees Blonde still has one foot inside the room. He raises the gun to shoot her but notices the timer has stopped. White approaches the camera and declares himself the winner of the competition. The guard shows him the timer, and White is shocked to see there are still 20 seconds left. This disqualifies him for breaking the rules by speaking to the Invigilator. It's revealed that Def had secretly altered the timer earlier while everyone else was distracted. With White disqualified, Blonde is the last one left. She walks back into the room and picks up Def's glasses, which had fallen when he was taken out. Using the glasses, she looks at her paper and finally sees the words "Question 1" written on it. To her surprise, Def re-enters the room, revealing that he is the CEO of the company and had joined the test to observe the candidates. Blonde approaches him and simply says, "No." The CEO and the Invigilator smile, realizing she has figured out the question and passed the test. It turns out the Invigilator's opening query, "Do you have any questions?" was the only question they needed to answer. The entire test was designed to assess the candidates' intelligence and attentiveness. Blonde is offered a position as the CEO's secretary, but she initially refuses, saying she doesn't want to work for an organization that kills people. The Invigilator then reveals that Black isn't really dead. The bullet was actually a capsule filled with a healing medicine that seals wounds upon impact. It's the company's groundbreaking cure for all diseases. In the end, Blonde accepts the job after learning the truth, and the movie concludes with her shaking hands with the CEO. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's some more interesting story you don't want to miss.